The 2020 NBA playoffs are just a few days away, so I decided to make my Eastern and Western Conference playoff predictions. Today is the Eastern Conference upload. Tomorrow is my Western Conference upload. It's definitely been a weird year. I was going to say just in the NBA, but no. I guess around the world. So here the NBA is, along with myself, distracting you, I guess, with the form of entertainment. These are what the standings look like. The 1-8 matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Orlando Magic. The 2-7, the Toronto Raptors versus the Brooklyn Nets. 3-6, Celtics versus Sixers. 4-5, Heat versus Pacers. I don't see the East being super crazy like the West, so that's why I wanted to do them first, because I felt like it was the easiest. The top teams in the East are really, really good, and the bottom teams in the East, they could have caused some problems if certain players weren't hurt. So we'll start off first with the 1-8 matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Orlando Magic. Although the Magic were able to get one against the Raptors as the 7th seed last year against the future champions, the Raptors, this year is a completely different story. The Milwaukee Bucks are a favorite to reach the finals, and they're healthy, while the Magic, on the other hand, they don't got that type of luxury. The Magic just aren't deep enough. They don't have the experience, and a few key guys are out with injuries, so this is an easy choice for me. I have the Milwaukee Bucks sweeping them. Bucks in 4. Moving on to the 2-7 matchup, the Toronto Raptors versus the Brooklyn Nets. This is an interesting one because the Brooklyn Nets are awful. They don't have any of their key guys playing. The only bright spot is Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen. But the Nets were somehow winning games within the bubble. So that gives me the impression that these dudes aren't the Wizards. They're not going to lose every single game. So instead of the Raptors sweeping the Nets, I have the Nets winning at least one game, taking the Raptors to 5. The Raptors have had a track record of always losing the first game these past few years. So that might be the case, and people might be thinking upset somehow. But ultimately, Raptors advancing to the second round. Followed by the 3-6 matchup, the Boston Celtics versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, originally when I saw this, I was like, oh man, Ben Simmons is out, Joel Embiid is out. This is going to be an easy, clean sweep for the Celtics. And although Ben Simmons won't be returning, Embiid is likely to play. And the Celtics don't really have a guy to stop Embiid. I mean, Daniel Theis and his cancer. If Embiid, ever decides to stop shooting as many threes and starts playing in the post, he's going to be scoring on them easy. So it's definitely going to be an interesting dynamic. The Sixers are going to be a whole different team next year. Brett Brown's probably out. And I don't know whether to give the Celtics beating the Sixers in 5 or the Celtics beating the Sixers in 6. And even though if I don't believe it, I'm going to have to say the Celtics over the Sixers in 6. Just based off the name, I really want to believe Embiid can do it by himself and be that first option without a real point guard, but it's not looking good. It's definitely not looking good. So Celtics in 6, even though if that's a stretch. Then the last matchup of the first round, the Heat versus Pacers, the 4-5 matchup. Variables are into this. Derrick Jones Jr. just had a nasty injury. Hopefully he's all right and comes back. But the Heat, this is what they're built for. They're built for the playoffs. They acquired Andre Iguodala. They got Jay Crowder. These dudes are going to be defensive monsters. And the Pacers, Oladipo is not playing like that all-star that he used to be after the injury. And one of their key pieces, Sabonis, not being ready in time for that first round of the playoffs. So the Pacers definitely been unlucky these past few playoff runs. But I have the Heat winning, beating the Pacers in 5. I gave the Pacers 1 just in case Sabonis comes back. And then there's always the variable of the Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren matchup. That's going to be interesting to watch. But Heat in 5. On to the second round of the Eastern Conference. We got the Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, and Heat. We got a very interesting matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat in the second round of the playoffs. Really, no one can stop Giannis. Maybe Jimmy Butler can pull a Kawhi and do so this year, but in terms of quality, the Bucks have a bunch of different 3-and-D cones surrounded by Giannis. You know, Giannis drives, kicks out to a shooter. Just have shooters around Giannis, play as a little defense, you're good. While the Heat, on the other hand, just a bunch of hard-nosed dudes that play defense, a bunch of specialists, sharpshooters out there. Overall, I think the Miami Heat have the better team. Just looking on paper right now. But they don't have Giannis. That's the thing. If the Miami Heat somehow beat the Bucks in the second round, what does that mean for Giannis's future with the Bucks? You know, that creates an interesting storyline. And I don't think nobody wants that. Well, in Milwaukee at least. But on paper, I'm looking at this piece of paper right here in front of me. They have dudes to throw at Giannis. They got, obviously, Bam, Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, Jimmy. That's tough. That's tough. But ultimately, I have the Bucks beating the Miami Heat in 6. This is going to be a very interesting and fun matchup, I feel like. And it is going to change the league if the Bucks somehow lose to the Miami Heat. But I don't have that being the case here. Then followed by the Boston Celtics versus the Toronto Raptors. This is another interesting one because the Toronto Raptors are the defending champs, obviously without Kawhi Leonard being the key guy gone, but they're still basically the same team. They've fought throughout the entire season to be this second seed, and they're a good regular season team. I've said this throughout the entire years covering like 2K NBA content. I've always said the Raptors have been an amazing regular season team, but come playoff time, they just don't have it. And without Kawhi, they definitely don't have it. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I truly believe, you know, any of these second round teams can make it to the finals, but I think the Boston Celtics will ultimately beat the Raptors in 6 games, which leads us into the third round of the playoffs. The last 2 teams standing in the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Boston Celtics. Another fun matchup, but I truly believe if any team is going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the East, it's going to be the Heat. It's not going to be the Celtics. If you look at the Celtics lineups, really you're counting on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to elevate their game to this superstar status and being able to go at Giannis, because they don't got as many people to throw at Giannis as the Heat do. Overall, I think the Celtics are the better team, just like I said with the Miami Heat and Milwaukee Bucks matchup, but they don't got, yeah, I feel like that's a cop-out, right? Saying they don't got Giannis. But that is true. You know, Giannis is arguably top 5, top 3 player currently in the NBA. Once again, in contention to winning another MVP award, so we'll see how that turns out. But I think ultimately the Bucks need this more. And I'm not picking the Bucks over the Celtics just because the Bucks need it more, but I truly believe Giannis is one of the best players in the league and will carry the Milwaukee Bucks over the Celtics to the NBA Finals for the first time in Giannis's tenure with the Bucks. So I have the Bucks beating the Boston Celtics in 6 games. The Bucks have a lot on the line with Giannis and him being happy there and him being able to compete. He has the offer to sign the Supermax contract and stay with the Bucks long term, or there could be a possibility he leaves within this next coming years. So they are definitely in win now mode, and although on paper they don't have a solid team compared to the rest of the Eastern Conference, they have the right players around Giannis, and I think that's what really matters the most. Although they don't have these big name players, they have the right ones around him. Unless Cavs George Hill comes out and misses like 2 critical free throws for the Bucks, then yeah, it's the right players. We're going to leave this video on a little bit of a cliffhanger. We're going to be talking about who I have winning the championship in the next video when we talk about the Western Conference. So come back tomorrow, watch that, and let me know who you got winning in the comment section below. Do you agree with my Bucks pick going to the finals? Am I setting too much of a narrative? Let me know. Leave a like, subscribe, check out some of these other videos, and I'll talk to you in the next one.